Syneto. Your data, our business.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for once again accepting to invest some of your precious time with us today. I can assure you it will be well worth it, because today we're going to be exploring the technology which makes Syneto products truly unique. Our operating system, Syneto OS 4. This is the pinnacle of our technology, and the OS features a new and completely redesigned software stack. And the first news I want to share with you regarding this is that starting tomorrow, March the 22nd, all new Hyper Series 3000 appliances will ship with Syneto OS 4 pre-installed. As some of you know, we initially rolled out the Syneto OS 4 with the Hyper Series 2000 at the end of last year. Now it is time. It is the moment we've all been waiting for, because after over a year in development, we are now shipping the new operating system across the entire Hyper Series range. The new Syneto OS 4 is the first of its kind, and during this webinar, we will explore this revolutionary operating system from a technical perspective and follow through with the philosophy which drives our software architecture, the result of which is Syneto OS 4. Now, during today's webinar, we will also be exploring the reasons we created Syneto OS 4 and finish up with an up and close view of its capabilities in a live demo. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Now, diving straight into it, Syneto OS 4 is designed to achieve our vision of a product which can help small and medium businesses compete with enterprise giants at the same level of technology and business agility. We take complex and hard to use enterprise technology and move this tech through the Syneto filter, which means simplifying it and putting it on a platform which is ideal for small and medium companies. Now, when you think about us, think Syneto, simplifying the complex. And Syneto OS 4 is our execution of this vision. This is what the Hyper Series itself delivers by unifying data center, storage, and backup or disaster recovery capabilities. And let me say this plainly, there is no other product on the market today which has this revolutionary approach of providing all of the IT services a small or medium company or remote office needs in a single product. And with Syneto OS launched across our product range, this concept of a unified architecture truly comes to life. In simple terms, Syneto OS 4 simplifies, accelerates, and protects all of the IT operations inside a small or medium company. And we will be exploring this concept as we move forward with the webinar. Before heading deeper, though, into the philosophy and technology inside Syneto OS 4, let's take a look at why we created this new operating system in the first place, what IT problems it fixes, and how this changes the game for small and medium companies. The first problem we notice when looking at other enterprise IT products is that most of the existing hyper-converged ones are in fact just glorified virtual storage solutions. The user still has to spend a lot of unnecessary time and a bunch of resources switching between vastly different management interfaces. If you think about it, you have to go onto the storage side, create your data stores, go into the hypervisor, register them. If you need any kind of backup and disaster recovery, you have to go into the interface of your backup software, which could be something like Veeam, and so on and so forth. In short, it is very complex. And that's because most of these products are a virtual SAN product, which has been beefed up to seem like a truly hyper-converged platform. That's the first one. The second issue we saw with existing products is that another point which hyper-converged infrastructures fail to deliver on, especially in the SMB space, is the promise of simplicity. Let's face it, what is the point of unifying applications or servers with storage and the networking in between if IT managers still have to spend a lot of time separately managing these various pieces with only small degrees of automation? And for the first time, Syneto OS 4 resolves these issues by integrating everything and automating a lot of the tasks, as you will see later on in the demo. And this leads us to the third reason we created Syneto OS 4, achieving simplicity and speed with the data protection side of IT infrastructures. As of now, Syneto products are the only ones which unify data center and storage capabilities with automated backup, replication, and recovery. Every other type of infrastructure requires a third-party solution, like I mentioned Veeam a while ago, and a separate recovery infrastructure in order to allow an IT manager to recover after a downtime incident. Low RPO and RTO is, as you well know, difficult to achieve precisely because the technology stack is not fully integrated. And these are the three reasons why we created Syneto OS 4 in the first place. We wanted a truly unified, functional, hyperconverged infrastructure that's not just a glorified virtual storage. We wanted to provide the simplicity that hyperconvergence promises in the first place, and we wanted to make backup, replication, disaster recovery as easy to do as possible and completely integrated with anything else. And so our answer to these issues is Syneto OS 4. It is the first enterprise IT software architecture which unifies all of the IT services a business needs, data center storage and disaster recovery into a complete, unified, single point of management where all the tasks an IT manager has to do, be it provisioning, protection, recovery, or monitoring, are automated, interconnected, and can be done on a single interface. This combination of hyperconvergence and disaster recovery has always been the core feature and uniqueness of Syneto. We now take this to the next level with an operating system which binds everything together on a technological level. And even more than that, we have designed the operating system with a philosophy of one-click everything. And you have to remember this is very important. What do we mean? What is this one-click everything concept all about? Well, simply put, we have taken our 8 years of IT infrastructure experience and analyzed the behavioral patterns of IT managers. What actions do they perform? Why do they log in to their IT infrastructure? What services do they provide the business with? What issues are they facing, especially in small and medium businesses and remote offices? And this long-term analysis has led us to the conclusion that, first of all, IT managers access their IT infrastructure in a limited number of real-world scenarios. They don't just go on their infrastructure without a precise goal. As such, the whole deal should be a fire and forget sort of operation most of the time. Data should be protected from long-term corruption, virtual servers should run without a lot of user input, and backup or replication operations, disaster recovery in general, should happen automatically and flexibly. So when an IT manager does access their infrastructure, they do it to perform a specific task. Provision a new resource for the company, for instance. This might mean a new data store for a VM or a new file share for a department. It might be a new backup or replication schedule for VMs or file shares, or with increasing frequency, unfortunately, IT managers need to recover applications or the entire infrastructure from some man-made or natural disaster, mostly man-made, as is the case with ransomware. And this is where our one-click everything concept shines, because it unifies and automates all of these provisioning, protection, recovery, and monitoring tasks, because those are the main reasons an IT manager does go onto does log on to the IT infrastructure. And third, the number of IT services most small and medium businesses need is actually relatively small. So companies need to have virtual applications through a hypervisor, storage in the form of both a network attached storage and a storage area network, so a NAS and a SAN, disaster recovery capabilities, and the networking to connect all of these components. And to simplify the concept, so what it is all about, one-click everything means that during the work on Syneto OS 4, we focus on We focused on automating, simplifying, accelerating, and bringing together all of an IT manager's actions and the IT services they need to use inside a single management point, inside a single screen to manage everything. So up to this point, we've talked about the reason Syneto OS 4 was created. We then looked at the philosophy which guided our software development efforts. And now it's time to take a dive into the core technological components which together make up Syneto OS 4. And Syneto OS 4 is made up out of 4 different layers which have been engineered to work together like a Lego set in a perfect symphony of technology in order to deliver all of the IT services we previously mentioned, along with unrivaled user experience. And on top of the plug and play hardware architecture of the Hyper series with which Syneto OS 4 ships, lies a unique software architecture which we will explore now. We are talking about 4 components. First off, at the bottom is the file system, and we use a powerful file system which most of you have seen with Syneto customers for the past 8 years, has proven reliability in production environments. So we know this is something that works. On top of this file system, and we will delve deeper into each component, we have deployed our very own secret ingredient, about which I will tell you in the next few slides. Next up is the hyperconvergence layer. This runs all of the VMs using the built-in VMware hypervisor and our own technologies to integrate the file system and all the rest of the components with the hyperconvergence layer. And at the same level lies the most important technology component, the copy data management layer. This piece of technology allows us to automate both VM and file backups, as well as all the necessary recovery operations. And right at the top of everything is the user interface. Here we have centralized everything in a modern HTML5 management center built under the previously mentioned one-click everything philosophy. Now, the core innovation of Syneto products is this meeting between full data center capabilities and built-in disaster recovery. With Syneto OS 4, we have taken this approach to the next level by improving the management and recovery of multiple copies of the data using the copy data management approach. So what is copy data management, or CDM for short? This concept of copy data management begins with the understanding that a range of IT functions depend on copies of data beyond data protection. So you don't need copies of the data just to protect it. A proper copy data management solution is designed to manage the creation and use of these copies in an efficient, automated, and completely integrated way. This indeed is a different approach, one that sees data protection as one of many consumers of data copies. And most organizations, entire disaster recovery sites, and you know this is true with the traditional sort of IT infrastructure built out of different components, separate servers, separate storage, and so on. And so many of these disaster recovery sites are full of data copies that just sit around and do nothing except wait for that oh boy moment that may or may never happen. So aside from automating protection and recovery, why not use these copies as an on-demand resource in environments such as development, testing, and many others? And in the Syneto OS 4 architecture, the multiple copies work in the following way, just so you understand when we get to the demo part, and I will be mentioning there as well which copy of the data we're accessing. So the first copy means live data on the primary machine, plus local snapshots or backups. So all the data that sits on the primary machine is the first copy. The second copy means a replication of the first copy to another hyper machine, another machine powered by Syneto OS 4. And so another Syneto OS software instance, if you will, that can run either on a Syneto appliance, so hardware plus software stack, but also as a software-only version on a predefined provider's cloud. The second copy is a backup. This backup can be used in case of a disaster recovery need. So the secondary copy basically covers backup plus disaster recovery scenarios. Now, the third copy is a further replication of the data to a third hyper machine, or third instance of Syneto OS as a software, to be more precise. And again, this can run either on a appliance or on something else. So the hyperconvergence layer. Moving on from the copy data management, the hyperconvergence layer is completely integrated with this concept of copy data management for both virtual machines and data stores. The hyperconvergence layer allows virtual machines to be deployed and managed directly on the Syneto appliance by using the VMware hypervisor. This is a perfect choice for our target market, for small and medium businesses, remote offices, because it is a very mature product with a wide adoption margin. It is integrated with the rest of the components through, and this is the interesting part, a proprietary Syneto plugin for VM management, which, as you will see in the demo, allows you to start, pause, stop, create backups, view analytics for every VM, as well as many other things like quiescing, replication, and finally, and most importantly, nearly instant recovery. And finally, the interface. So as I mentioned, this is a modern HTML5 interface that ties everything together. It allows IT managers to manage VMs directly from the interface. It allows snapshots or backups of the VMs to be automatically created, and then it replicates them asynchronously to the built-in DR units. Just as a reminder, every Hyper series ships with a DR unit, and this would be the second copy of the data. So the revolutionary aspect of this is that you can restart VMs from a backup directly on the DR unit. That's where our concept of back to business in 15 minutes comes from, because it means that as an IT manager, you don't have to switch between different interfaces, and many of the processes, as you will see in the demo, are automated. So such as registering a new data store in the hypervisor, deleting a VM after recovery has occurred from a second copy, and so on. So this is the heart of the functionality side of Syneto OS 4. And last but not least, let's talk about the file system. Now, the file system inside Syneto OS 4 has a full suite of block-by-block auto protection and self-healing mechanisms. The main job of the file system is to ensure the long-term consistency of the data, as well as allow for seamless scalability in terms of space and performance. Oh, and to address performance, the file system has an advanced tiering mechanism, which ensures the data is always accessible from the fastest layer of the cache, according to most frequently used and most recently used algorithms. And the cache itself has 3 tiers. The most or recently used data is located in the RAM memory layer and available at nanosecond latencies. The next layer down is a read-write cache located on SSDs, which have millisecond latency, and only the least used data finds its way to the slow but economically efficient spinning disk tier. So how did we take this file system with proven reliability in production and integrate it with our vision of a fully unified IT infrastructure? Well, let me tell you what's changed. On top of the file system, we have written an advanced metadata layer, which makes the file system smart. What I mean by that is the metadata layer makes the file system aware of the type of object the data is coming from. So it is aware if the data belongs to a virtual machine, a data store, a NAS share, a SUN protocol, and most importantly, if it is a disaster recovery object. So if it is a backup of a VM or a zero space allocation clone. And this is our wizardry in Filesystems, because it brings together our concept of a unified data center and disaster recovery with instant replay functionality, if you have it that way. So before proceeding to the demo, which is probably the most interesting part of this webinar, where you will see all of the concepts we discussed and technologies in action, let's look at a short summary of the benefits this unique blend of technology and philosophy offers. And you will see why I said on the first slide that Syneto OS simplifies, accelerates, and protects IT operations. Well, it simplifies them because of the one-click provisioning, one-click protection, one-click recovery, and monitoring philosophy. So we want the user to do as few actions as possible to get his objective done as fast as he can. Then, because there is only one technology underneath all of the IT services in your company, you will learn very fast how to use it. You have a single point of support for your entire IT infrastructure, and our products are plug and play. There's no complex setup required. By the way, since we're talking about simplicity and we're talking about plug and play, during this webinar, there are two available downloadables or handouts. There is a quick start guide for how to install a Syneto appliance once it arrives, and you will see it's absolutely very easy to do that, and why we say it's plug and play. And also the complete manual for the current version of Syneto OS 4 is available for download, so you can look in the handout section and download both of these. And since I'm on this point, please feel free to write any questions you might have in the questions side or in the chat, which is provided by the webinar tool we are using. Getting back to how Syneto OS 4 simplifies, last point is it's an IT infrastructure designed both from a technology and from a philosophy standpoint. It is designed specifically for SMB, for small and medium business environments, and it is ideal for that. At the same time, it accelerates your business. So any kind of IT process that is connected to the business gets faster. We have our back to business in 15 minutes after any downtime incident philosophy. This means that if something happens to the primary unit, you can restart everything in 15 minutes on the DR unit, all of your VMs, all of your file shares, and you can get back to serving the business needs. And also the backups are instant, they're automatic and fully reliable. You only need to create a backup once and then it will run automatically. There's no user input required. And finally, you can restore any of the local backups. So if you have a backup of a virtual machine, you can restore this VM from the backup instantly. It's a process that lasts only a few seconds, and you will see that during the demo. Now, finally, aside from simplifying, accelerating IT operations, we also protect a customer's data and their investment. And we achieve that by being the only product on the market today with a built-in disaster recovery capability. We have automatic fire and forget protection and replication. There is, of course, no need for a third-party backup product or a third-party backup infrastructure where you can restart everything in case of failure. And there's absolutely no hidden costs. So what you see with Syneto is what you get. We don't have any kind of complex licensing schemes and all that. So without keeping you further, let's proceed to a demo of Syneto OS 4. And this is where everything that I've just told you in the slides before you will see that in reality. So we are now logging in to our Syneto Hyper Series primary unit. And first of all, I'm going to walk you through the dashboard, which has been completely redesigned. And of course, the entire structure has been completely redesigned so that it is insanely easy to use. Now, the dashboard, when you first log into the interface, it gives you an at-a-glance view of everything that is happening on your IT infrastructure. So the amount of resources used in terms of computing power, in terms of memory, in terms of how much storage is used. You have a data protection view, and here you can see that everything is integrated, because in the data protection view, you can see how many virtual machines you have running, if they are protected or no, how many data stores, how many shares, volumes, etc. You can see the hypervisor running a summary of the VMs, how many of them are on, how many of them are off, if they're suspended, and also a view of the space-saving mechanisms which run on Syneto OS. We're talking about inline data compression here, so which has saved us, as you can see, about 36 gigabytes, which is nearly 40% data saving. And of course, you have an overall health of the system, if there are any faults, any warnings, and how much storage performance you have at any point. Now, everything is managed using the main menu on the left. You have the virtual machines page, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. You have data stores, you have shares, because Syneto also has a built-in file sharing capability. So you can use this to create a file share, and then this can be shared with and accessible to people in the company. And you have the disaster recovery component, which is built in, and which we'll see in just a few minutes. And finally, we have the analytics section, where you can get a grasp of what is happening, and this will mostly be used for monitoring purposes. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is create a data store. In this case, creating a data store is very simple. You just click the new data store button. We give it the designation. In this case, it will be test webinar, and it is created. So everything, all the magic happens in the background. It goes inside the hypervisor, registers it. You don't have to do anything. We've automated all of that for the user. So let's move on to the virtual machines page. Now, the virtual machine page displays all of the VMs running on your IT infrastructure. It gives you an at-a-glance view of the amount of resources they are taking up, and most importantly, which is unique to Syneto, the kind of protection that a VM benefits from. As you can see, in the case of this Active Directory Windows, in case of this Windows Server instance, snapshots or backups, local backups, are being taken daily, and then they are replicated to the DR unit. Now, let's look at a classic virtual machine. In this case, it is a Windows 10 machine. If you click on the interface on a virtual machine, it will display its in-depth information. So what data store is it running on? In this case, it's running on data store Win10 demo Syneto EU. Now, we advise as a best practice to have a data store, a separate data store for every VM. This makes having the right sort of granularity during recovery much simpler. And also we can see the type of operating system which is running on it. And most importantly, and here you will see how we've binded everything together with our philosophy of one-click everything, you can control the virtual machine directly from the Syneto OS interface. So you can power it off, you can suspend it, you can reset it, you can go into the console. So without further ado, let's create a protection schedule for it. We can see here that it already has a protection schedule, but it is currently paused. So let's go into the protect and replicate page using, again, the main menu on the left. And let's look for our Windows 10 data store, and see we can see it here. Now let's create a more aggressive backup schedule. Let's say that this VM has incredibly important accounting data, for instance, or something else that we want to make sure is protected every minute instead of every hour. So we simply turn on a minute-by-minute protection schedule, which will work every 1 minute. We will keep 10 of the copies locally, so we can instantly recover this machine from 10 minutes ago all the way up to 1 minute ago. And we will also replicate these backups to our built-in disaster recovery unit, well, where we will be keeping about 30 of them. And that's it. All the magic happens in the background. And for right now, let's force it to run at this very minute. Now, what will happen now is that a snapshot will be taken of the VM. Meanwhile, our operating system talks to the hypervisor. As you can see here, it's currently replicating. It takes a backup of the machine, puts everything together with the hypervisor, and then once that is done, it replicates it to the DR unit. So let's go back to the machine, to the Windows machine we just protected. One of the very nice features of Syneto OS is that you can access the VM directly from the OS interface. So you can do all your management and everything you need directly from here. There's absolutely no reason you need to do a lot of switching between interfaces. Okay, so it seems like Windows is trying to force some updates on us, which we're not going to do right now. So basically, as you can see, you can now instantly access a VM, but we've also created a protection schedule for it. So all of our data is backed up. Let's explore what happens in a very real-world scenario where this particular Windows machine will get absolutely destroyed by a ransomware application. Boom, that's it. It's very bad now for the user. Absolutely everything on this Windows machine is infected. Let's quickly shut down the network is already shut down, thankfully, because we don't want this crypto virus. We don't want WannaCry to spread across the network. So this is a very bad situation. But thankfully, with Syneto, it is extremely easy to get back to business like nothing happened. We have a backup schedule that creates a backup every minute. So at most, we will risk losing 60 seconds of our data. Now we can get back to the interface, and we of course are going to power off this VM because there's absolutely nothing we can do about it now. All that important accounting data is unfortunately encrypted. And now there's two things we can do. We can either instantly recover this VM locally. As you can see, there are all the snaps, all the backups, all the local backups that have been created here. We have this very nice calendar view, which everybody is familiar with, again, under the one-click everything concept. This is something very familiar, and you simply select the backup that you want to recover from. But in this instance, I'm also going to show you the DR unit. Now, the DR unit, as you can see, hyperdemo DR, has received the backup. So there is now, this is the second copy of the data. Normally, in a ransomware human error sort of instance, we wouldn't have to recover it from the disaster recovery unit. You can see the data store here, and we just simply go on the snapshots. And we'll select one where we know that the ransomware infection did not occur. So we simply hit clone. What this does is we use a zero space allocation clone system to simply recreate that VM in a certain instance in time. Allow me to point out that you can do the same thing for file shares, so not only for VMs, but since this is a hyperconverged infrastructure, we're going to mainly talk about VMs. Now, as the file system is aware this is a disaster recovery object, it is also aware that inside it there is a virtual machine. So we will select it, we want this virtual machine, and we will hit clone. And again, this is all the Lego pieces that I've shown you during the slides. That's all the Lego systems working together. So it's retrieving data from the snapshots, it's sharing it with the host, it's creating a data store, and then making the clone. So everything, think about it, on a traditional infrastructure, these would be steps that a person actually has to do. This is the automation that I was talking about. Instead of spending, I don't know, a couple of hours carefully doing all of these operations, with Syneto OS 4, you simply have to click on a button and everything happens in the background. Now, in this case, we are creating a clone of we are recovering a machine, a virtual machine, from a backup that was replicated. So this is the second copy of the data. If we were to recover it from the first copy of the data, which is on the primary unit, so the data that's being used, the process would have been much faster. As it is, it is only a few minutes that's going to take to create this, to recreate this machine from before the infection ever happened. And the good thing about this is recovery is in this case very fast, because as you know, when something goes wrong with IT, let's say that the accounting department no longer has access to this machine, they are all going to be banging on the door of the IT manager. So what he can do is he just recovers it, and while in the 2 minutes that this happens, you saw it only took a couple of minutes, he can go out and have some tea or coffee, and everything will be back in business. Okay, so now we have our virtual machines, our virtual machine here. It was the virtual machine list here on the DR unit was empty at first, because this is a DR unit. We are not, we don't have an active workload here. Again, if it was a regular ransomware infection, we would be doing the recovery on the primary unit. But in case something happens to the primary unit, this is basically the way that you would recover the entire IT infrastructure. Instead of just recovering this Windows 10 machine, you would be recovering all of the VMs and all of the file shares in the same way. Now, hopefully I have selected a backup, which was, I was not careful with that. I've selected the backup that does not have the, oh, this still has the ransomware. But basically the procedure is the same. I'm going to do a recovery on the primary machine as well, so that we don't have this ransomware issue to contend with. So I'm going to choose one which was taken a while ago, just to make sure that this is not the case. Again, as you can see, this is very fast. We are recovering locally, so this is not a backup that has been replicated in any way. Unfortunately, I was not careful enough. I didn't look at a clock, so I selected a backup that already had the ransomware infection active on it, but no matter. As you can see, it was a lot faster. It was a lot faster here. And this is our recovered VM. We're just going to power it on now. And again, we can see all the Lego pieces working together. The VM is registered in the hypervisor. It's started, and we will soon be able to use it in its full capacity. Now, looking at it this way, Syneto, that's why Syneto is a truly special product, because no other product out there binds all of these different parts of the IT infrastructure together. Let's access Mr. John Smith's computer. And we're going to see the status as soon as Windows boots up. There we go. So this is obviously before the ransomware infection took place. So in just a few minutes that you spent here with me, you saw how to recover, how to protect and how to recover a VM. It is that easy. It is so simple. So fast that you could probably, if you had a Syneto right now, you could probably do the same workflow I did without having any issues. And this is exactly the sort of simplicity and speed that we were going for with Syneto OS 4. So that concludes the demo for right now. I'd like to thank you very much for attending the webinar today. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I will try to answer them. Again, talking about simplicity, both the manual and the quick start guide are available as downloads. I don't seem to be able to access the GoToWebinar interface for some reason. There we go. So we have a question. It's from Ludovico Bonini, from Mr. Ludovico Bonini, and he says, "Great. It's really much better than the former version of the operating system. When are you going to upgrade current Hyper Series customers?" The answer is really, really soon. We are going to announce the precise date in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. It's going to happen really soon. It is the plan for right now, as of tomorrow. All of the new Hyper Series 3000 will ship with Syneto OS 4. Again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to write them in the question section, and I would gladly answer them for you. If not, if something comes back to you later, please feel free to contact me directly. My email is dragos@syneto.eu, and I will gladly answer them for you. Again, thank you for spending your time with us. I hope you saw this concept of simplify, accelerate, protect come to life in this new version of our operating system, which I think is a game changer in terms of what small and medium businesses can do to compete at the same technological and business agility level as giant enterprises. So thank you, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.
Syneto, your data, our business.